So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and I'm here in my home area of Berks County, and I have another haunted tale to tell you. It's the legend of the Gray Devil. Alright, so I'm currently here in French Creek State Park. We'll also be over what's called Hopewell Village. So it's cool to find a story that took place in my home area. I like to find ghost stories that are close to home too. But this comes from the book Berks and Schuylkill County Ghost Stories by Charles Adams III. So I have a number of his books. So I'm going to, at different times throughout this video, I'm going to be reading from this book, and other times I'll just be telling you about the story. But like I said, we're going to start here in French Creek because the tale starts kind of between Hopewell Lake and the Hopewell Village. But let me reach the first parts of this story. It is a story of a loathsome rogue, a vulnerable gypsy girl, and a ghost. It is a story of a shadowy scoundrel forever known in history and lore only as the Gray Devil. So just getting ready to tell you the beginning part of this story. But speaking of haunted stuff and weird, creepy things, what in the world is going on down here? Okay. We're just gonna let that go. That might be one of the creepiest things I've found in a while. Okay, so now that I'm totally distracted, maybe we'll start another story, the legend of the Coca-Cola baby that was left at French Creek State Park and still haunts the grounds today. Anyway, well, you know, I don't like dolls. Stuff like that's kind of, find one just out there like that. Anyway, back to our real story we're supposed to be talking about today. Hope we don't find any more dolls. But anyway, our story of the Gray Devil, or sometimes referred to as the Gray Ghost. You have to take yourself back to the late 1700s, in that time era. So that's where we're headed. So history doesn't give this fellow a name. Like after his death and his continued haunting of this area, he was just referred to often as the Gray Devil, or like I said, the Gray Ghost. But he was a rogue. He was a villain. You know, he spent his days robbing people, committing various crimes, you know, taking their jewelry and their money and things like that, and that's how he made his living. All the way from Canada down to the Carolinas, the book mentions. So he was quite a traveling fella. But of course, the more he lived this lifestyle, the more he became known. You know, he went by probably different names in different areas. They probably didn't all realize that it was the same person because he had, like I say, quite an extensive area he traveled. But eventually, the law did catch up to him, and a warrant was issued for his arrest in Lancaster. But he did escape, made his way up to New York along the Hudson Valley. And of course, at times when things got, because you could say, hot for him, when people were after him, the law, he would kind of settle down in the area and kind of get a job perhaps and kind of hide that way. But eventually he was captured up there in New York along the Hudson Valley. I think someone from Lancaster captured him. They brought him back down to Lancaster. But it was a deputy sheriff. But at one point he was able to overpower the fella, and he escaped back out into the wilderness here of Berks and Chester counties, kind of near where St. Peter's Village is today. Actually, not terribly far from here, Hopewell Village. And he stayed in this area, continued committing his crimes, you know, stealing from people, jewelry and stuff. But he also gained the loyalty of some of the locals. He kind of became a Robin Hood figure in some ways. He would help out those who were less fortunate with some of the things he had stolen. But he was still a criminal nonetheless. And he did have a hovel, they called it, or some little structure out in the woods here that he lived in. But up here, along the old road that goes from Hopewell Dam to Hopewell Village, is where things changed for him. He met someone along that old road. So we're going to head there. That's where we're heading here next, and we'll begin the story there. Alright, so here is Hopewell Dam, and this is the road that takes you up to Hopewell Village. And it was along this old road that he met a beautiful young gypsy girl. And I'll read that to you in a moment. Just gotta find a place to sit down, read that account to you. Alright, so here comes our encounter. It is said that as he returned to his hovel one afternoon laden with the pilfered goods, he happened upon a beautiful gypsy girl whom early storytellers described as a maiden free from cloud, spot, or blemish, and an untutored, beautiful creature of the great outdoors, with a cameo profile and a figure quite attractive. So that's what he ran into. Their paths first crossed on a lonely road near Hopewell Dam, which is just where we were. And the gray devil was tamed by her grace. He melted in her presence. It was love at first sight for both. They talked. He presented her with a piece of jewelry, stolen jewelry, and they arranged to meet again soon at the same spot. This spot right here, maybe? Probably not, but it's interesting to consider. Right, the gypsy girl and the gray devil met clandestinely, or secretly, I guess I probably said that wrong. Anyway, secretly in the deep woods near Hopewell, and each time they did, the smitten bandit presented her with another bauble from his ill-gotten bounty, a bauble or a gift of jewelry. Yeah, soon the raven-haired girl invited her mysterious lover to meet her parents, who lived in what had been the foundryman's house in Hopewell Village, and that's just right over here. That's where we're going to go next. Yeah, and it was there that the gray devil met his match and sealed his fate. All right, so just up the path then is Hopewell Village. They have a number of little houses here. Of course, the main home and iron furnace are up that way. I think the blacksmith shop is right there. So is one of these the house? Who knows? We're gonna go check the one out. Continue our story there. We'll assume it's this house right here. So yeah, she invited him to meet her parents, who perhaps lived here. But a visitor, and the story's a bit unclear if the visitor came when the gray devil was here, but at one point someone visited the house and noticed a ring on her finger. I'm assuming the fellow was here as well. And he thought he recognized the ring, because remember the ring was a gift from the gray devil to this gypsy girl. It looked like a ring that had belonged to his wife that had been stolen recently. And he asked her about the ring, and the fellow that gave it to her. You know, perhaps in this very house. Cool. It used to be decorated a lot more in here, but cool. Who knows, maybe they chatted right over here about it. So reading on, a visitor called upon the girl's family one day and noticed a lovely ring on her finger. When asked how she got it, she casually replied that it was a gift from a suitor, or kind of like boyfriend. The visitor called her father aside and whispered that there was no doubt whatsoever that that ring belonged to his mother, I think I said wife earlier, who had reported it stolen a while back. When asked about her friend, the girl described him, and the visitor recognized him as, you know it, the gray devil, the man, the notorious man who had been stealing in the area. The men took the girl aside and explained whom her consort really was. She was at once heartbroken and enraged. Determined to gain revenge, the crestfallen maiden agreed to aid in the capture of the gray devil. So reading on, a visitor called upon the girl's family one day and noticed a lovely ring on her finger. When asked how she got it, she casually replied that it was a gift from a suitor, or kind of like boyfriend. The visitor called her father aside and whispered that there was no doubt whatsoever that that ring belonged to his mother, I think I said wife earlier, who had reported it stolen a while back. When asked about her friend, the girl described him, and the visitor recognized him as, you know it, the gray devil, the man, the notorious man who had been stealing in the area. The men took the girl aside and explained whom her consort really was. She was at once heartbroken and enraged. Determined to gain revenge, the crestfallen maiden agreed to aid in the capture of the gray devil. And continuing on just a little bit more, she would again meet this is the plan, she would again meet the man at their appointed time and place on the road between Hopewell Dam and the village, dressed more provocatively and acting more alluring than ever. The sinister trap was set. Yeah, so the trap was set. And it's interesting to think that that conversation could have taken place in this very house. I'm not sure if this is where her family lived, but this house dates back that time. It's part of Hopewell Village. Just an interesting thought. There were probably other houses here back then too, but yeah, the trap was set. So what was the trap and what happened? Well, like I said, she agreed to meet him once again, dressed, looking prettier than ever, and they met at their spot, as they had many other times before. But unbeknownst to him, this time, her father, a bunch of other local men, and I think the local deputy or sheriff was also out there in the woods waiting. And at one point, they waited long enough and they rushed into the spot where those two were huddled together. And the Gray Devil realized what was happening. He tried to shield himself with the girl that he was in love with, but she was able to wriggle away, and he was just left standing there. He pulled his pistol, but as he was pulling his pistol, he was shot by, I think it was the deputy. Wasn't killed on the spot, but he died later in the Lancaster County Jail. But as with any good story or legend like this, it doesn't end there. Usually there's a haunting involved. So as I make my way back, I'll find a spot to sit down once again with you and read a little bit about what those hauntings are. They seem to occur on that trail that we were on earlier. Somebody's referred to as the old road between Hopewell Dam and the village here. But some say it happened on the road out here too, the main road today. A story like this has to have a haunting. So, nothing overly sinister. Yeah, but a lot of you know I love this place, Hopewell Village. That's the house we were in earlier. But yeah, this place is just amazing. All the beautiful buildings that are original to that time period. So this is where our story takes place. It's kind of cool to do a legend and a haunting when the stuff from the story is still here. Like I said, the main furnace and other buildings are up that way, but we're gonna take our trail and go back that way. And so as I mentioned earlier, with every story like this, there has to be a haunting. So let me read a little bit about what happens in this area. So after the mysterious marauder's death, folks in and around Hopewell Village reported frightening ghostly activity on Old Hopewell Road near the furnace. The dull thundering sound of a silvery phantom horse's hooves could be heard echoing in the dead of night, and if conditions were just right, the grim ghost of the Gray Devil himself could be seen gliding on the road on an eternal search for another unsuspecting victim. So a haunting, but nothing too frightening, unlike our creepy Coke baby down here. This thing's still here. I feel like I'd rather run into the Gray Devil and his silvery phantom steed than come across this, especially like in the middle of the night. That's just, someone's obviously just having some fun, but that, I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna walk away. So what can you learn from this story? Well, stay away from creepy dolls laying around the woods. But yeah, don't steal from people. If you find a pretty girl in the woods, maybe you should just stay away from her too. Anyway, it's kind of a cool story, and like I said, for me it's even better because I could actually come to the spot where it actually happened and tell the story. Like walk the old road where they met, go to the village where the plan to catch him was hatched, where the girl lived. Maybe not the exact house, but right in that area. So cool story. Yeah, if you know anything more about the story you want to share with me, or if you have your own ghost story or tale you think I should tell in a future video in my Haunted Pennsylvania series, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Alright, as always folks, thanks for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one, wherever that may be.